Welcome in, everybody. This is It's Not Only Football, Friday Night Lights and Beyond. My name is Scott Porter, Jason Street from Friday Night Lights, and I'm joined by...
Zach Gilford, a.k.a. Matt Saracen.
Mae Whitman, a.k.a. Just Happy to Be Here.
And today we find out, who's your daddy?
I don't think you should do that.
I don't like that.
Just in general. I'm the only one who can call you guys daddy. You can't call yourselves.
No. Okay, what? This because I said the title of the episode?
It was the way you said it.
Yeah, but I was also distracted. You have food on your sweater.
I know.
Yeah.
I ate a croissant. Yeah, go ahead.
She didn't eat a croissant.
I
straight
devoured
a croissant.
Speaking of which, I would like to thank May for providing Scott and I with acai bowls. That was very kind.
It's my pleasure.
I owe you nothing.
That's the truth. It's the truth. I am generous when it comes to my food delivery.
May is very generous. She is that person who is always like, hey, I'm getting this. Does anybody want some?
I had an ex tell me once that my love language was food delivery.
Well, gifts. Yes. Gifts is a love language.
Sure.
Right?
It's the one I speak. But question, is your love language supposed to be what speaks to you or what you speak?
It can be both, right? It goes
different?
both directions. So, yeah.
What's yours?
Mine is service.
Mine too.
Yeah.
That's like so selfish of us, isn't it? I always feel guilty saying that that's mine.
Physical.
Ew, you just did a honker grab.
You
oh my God.
Not a honker grab.
Okay, guys.
Shoulder
Someone has taken the something off Scott. He's talking about daddies and grabbing titties. Don't grab air titties.
He's
Stop.
beet red. Look at him. He just turned redder than the Podcast One logo.
That is me.
He is. He actively reached across the table.
You might as well have been like, ooga.
You guys can make a GIF out of it. Don't worry. Tune in.
No, there's already a GIF of me doing the slow CW turnaround. I don't need more embarrassing.
You don't need more
then
honker
stop
grabs.
doing embarrassing shit. You know?
No, this was to tell you that physical touch. I won't do it again.
Keep those hands down.
Like
this is Scott's love language. it's titty grabbing.
Air titties
so
only.
canceled.
Okay, there's a difference.
Fair enough.
That's what the air is there for, sweetheart.
Okay, welcome to our show. Yes, we are talking about an episode called. Somebody else want to say it because obviously I shouldn't.
Who's your daddy?
Who's your daddy? When I hear who's your daddy,
not creepy when I say it, but when Scott does,
that was good.
Who's your daddy?
When I hear
little girl,
dang it. When I think of who's your daddy, I just hear Arnold saying, "Who is your daddy and what does he do?" All right, so I'm old. I'm going to date myself. There used to be a website called eBombs World, and on it, you could prank call people, and you could use different, indexes of sound bites of like Miss Cleo or different actors, and Arnold was one of them. And one of the buttons you could press, he would, "Who is your daddy and what does he do? Who is your daddy and what does he do?" From Kindergarten Cop. No?
I remember the film.
Don't
remember the name. Whatever. Anyway.
Okay. Anyway,
who's your father?
Yes.
Yeah.
This one.
Written by Carrie Aaron.
Ooh, who is a boss. Who was a boss.
Completely.
Can you give us the resume?
She created Bates Motel.
Ooh.
Wow.
She created The Morning Show.
Jesus.
She worked on Parenthood for a
Correct.
while. You are familiar with Carrie. And it was directed by one of my favorite directors ever.
My absolute favorite, Allison Liddy Brown.
Yes, who also directed Parenthood.
She's the best.
Liddy is awesome.
Yeah, she had like most of my big episodes, and then my like real big one later with my dad. She directed, and I was just like, I'm so happy you're directing this.
She directed that one?
Yeah.
That's why you're so good in it.
Yeah.
It's not my acting. It's her directing.
Come on.
It's you know what it is? It's the camera work on this show.
God, we haven't talked about that yet.
I kid.
We didn't always go in for coverage.
Go ahead. Let's hear. Wait. Hold on. Did you do your homework this week?
No, I didn't do my homework.
God.
Of course
well,
not.
No, so thanks to fandom.com.
Yeah, having not done your homework, can you even possibly tell us what happened this week? Read it in a good, that's good.
News titans around Coach Taylor during bye week. Facing the Panthers' biggest rival, Coach Taylor, parentheses Kyle Chandler, end parentheses, must find a way to bring the team together while his family falls apart. Quote, Smash Williams, parentheses Gaius Charles, end parentheses, and Tim Riggins, parentheses Taylor Kitsch, end parentheses, unite to plot their revenge against the Tigers for their destruction of their field house. Boom.
Boom. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's not only football.
No.
This one is rivalries. And rivalries, I feel like, touch everybody. You can have an office rivalry You can have in acting. I have a fake rivalry with Chris Evans. Oh. Yeah, he doesn't even know like I exist, but like I've tested for so many things that he has booked that I'm like, hey, I have a rivalry.
Yeah,
I have one of those.
You know, I'm 0-7.
There's one person every time I've tested against him. Like now,
who?
He's a really nice guy. We've actually become friends through him seeing him at tests. It's Michael Stahl-David. Every time I've gone up against him, it's like,
he's like really talented.
Yeah,
what'd you say?
He's like the football
really
kid
talented.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
He doesn't need directors.
So are you.
No.
He just acts.
Yeah.
Do you have a rival?
God, honestly, I feel like my rivals were like kid acting. It's like you sort of you outgrow it at a certain point. But I did have like.
Do you?
I mean, I'm just too tired. I have barely enough energy to like get
like 3 coffees.
Exactly.
In front of you.
I have. Well, they call me Mama Cups on sets because I always have at least 4 beverages in front of me. But yes, I need so much caffeine to even just function. But yes, I remember my dad making a joke that sort of I actually felt a little threatened by, which was when I was 10. I remember watching the Welch's grape juice girl. Had like a little commercial that she did, like a cute little charismatic moment, and she was obviously younger than me. And my dad was like, "Hey, watch out, she's coming for your job." And I was like, "Do you think is she going to be the new person that's taking the job?" So I mean, that's the only one that kind of jumps out at me at the moment.
I know everybody out there has like that thing, and it's fully apparent in this.
I call
episode.
it my nemesis.
Yeah, nemesis sounds
Your
cool.
Nemesis, yeah,
that sounds cooler.
And the nemesis for the Dillon Panthers is the Arnett Meade Tigers, who. Use the uniforms.
Oh, here we go.
Wait a second.
A&M Consolidated High School in College Station. That's
Thank
right.
you.
That's cool.
Thank you.
A&M.
That's really cool.
I liked it better when he was honking the air titties.
Yeah.
So what if it wasn't only about football? Then what was it about for you, Zach Gilford?
Oh, the dog ate my homework.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, it was about not doing your homework. Well, for me, I will just throw out there. For me, this episode made me feel like I thought it was really pervasive. The themes of obligations and like what our perceived sense of duty and like what we think it's supposed to be and sort of how even when you sort of start to put yourself first, how those kind of chains almost don't always continue to fit and sort of how this sense of obligation can kind of stand in the way or be an obstacle to you becoming the best version of yourself, which ultimately you have to do in order to perform those obligations to the best of your ability. And so I think that's like a really interesting theme that we see in this episode is like sort of showing what everybody thinks they're supposed to be doing and feels guilty that they can't force themselves to do or can't handle doing. And it's sort of like an interesting kind of dichotomy, if you will. You like that?
I do like
Gilford fell asleep.
The other thing that is
Why do we?
Apologies is the other thing that I thought of this episode.
You can use that one.
Fully apparent in like people have things that they need to apologize for, and then there are things that people do not need to apologize for. And you hear a lot of apologies in this episode. And the main one I think is Coach and Tammy. Like their storyline in this episode
so good.
is fantastic. One of the most famous Coach and Tammy Taylor scenes is their argument under the dining room table when Coach has didn't even tell her that they were hosting some bye-week, because this is a bye-week. For anybody out there who's not a football fan, this episode of Friday Night Lights takes place during something called a bye-week. That means that the football team is off. They have a week off from playing.
They do not have a game.
They do not have a game.
Still practice, though.
Slammin' Sammy Meade says on the show, he goes, "Oh, it's the worst kind of Friday, folks. It's the one without a game." And so Coach,
be a dark spring for them.
Right. Coach has so much on his plate, though, with VooDoo and all these other things happening, he completely forgets or doesn't know that
don't make apologies for him.
They're supposed to. That they're supposed to. Yeah, this is the one where Coach really looks bad in this one. But he's like, Julie comes home and is like, "Hey, are we hosting some type of major party 2 days from now?"
Because some person I've never heard of that you never hear again.
Oh, I got the script from this episode, by the way, and Lois is all over it. Tons of lines by Lois.
Really?
Not in the show.
Is that true?
True story. There are a lot of scenes in this script that are not in this episode, period. Like so much stuff was pulled out or shifted to later. There's a scene with Jason Street and his parents talking about insurance and all that stuff. That was shunted to later. There's 3 scenes in the episode that involve Herc, not in the script. So it's like this This script in particular was like, this is a whole different show. Anyway, Lois.
You're pulling on my headphones.
Sorry. I got excited.
So Lois comes up because Lois never gets invited to anything, and Julie's like, but she got invited to the barbecue. Tammy's like, what barbecue?
Do they ever cast a Lois? Do you remember?
That would be so shitty if they cast her and she was like, I got this big part, and then they were like,
There's a lot of really talented actors that got cast on this show that never got utilized. Like Walter Perez. He plays Reyes. And you hear Coach throw out the name Reyes every now and then. Walter Perez was basically like in every episode, but not in every episode.
Well, there's only so much. I mean, we even had things, I shot scenes where, they never end up. I mean, we all have had it where you shoot a scene that doesn't end up in the show, but there's just, with such a big cast, you can only service so many storylines. And I think a lot of times when you have such a big cast, you want to write something for them in every episode. You don't want to just leave them on the side. But then sometimes it's like, oh, that's not
it
so
doesn't
pivotal
serve the
to
story.
So that kind of gets left aside. And you're like, man, glad we shot that scene.
But that's
best acting I ever did.
That's what the show was really...
Yeah, that's your excuse. All your good scenes got cut out. That's what it was.
I think the show was really good, though, at identifying what stories it needed to bring to the fore and what stories they didn't have to be precious about and just cut them loose. And I think it happened a lot. And we just had tons of, like I was saying, tons of talented actors that maybe were underutilized because it's just that storyline didn't have the same impact by no fault of their own.
No.
And talking about not being precious, that's one other thing that we need to talk about, which is, kind of is Herc and the introduction of this character of Herc for you. That was something that really struck me was sort of, again, we've talked about your path, sort of how it's starting to split. But I feel like in this episode, a little bit in the last, but really in this episode, we start to see a new Jason, like bits and pieces of sort of you kind of leaving this shell behind of maybe, again, the things that don't fit you, and then sort of like creating this new person. And this guy, Herc, who comes in and the way he talks to you sometimes just seems downright disrespectful. But also, there is something so commanding about not being too delicate or precious about the situation that you're in. And I found that like really striking, the way that like he sort of communicates with you, I mean, that's like a relationship I really want to know more about. Like, what was it like working with him, and what's he like as a person? And,
Yeah. I mean, Kevin Rank is the actor, and he is just a wonderful person.
He is such a great guy. Somebody
that I'm really actually, look, we all have friends that we have in this business that you don't talk to all that often, but deep down are a true blue friend. And he is that for me. I am that for him. Him and his wife, Jill, is their beautiful family. And
did they move to Austin?
They did, yeah. They moved down to Texas. And, I mean, you've seen Kevin on tons of other stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, he went on from this show and just did a ton of awesome stuff. But his introduction in this episode is both as a rival for Jason in a way because he's his roommate.
Right.
And when you first see him, and I guess maybe do you want to break this down to like character arcs maybe? We'll talk about Jason's whole arc today, and then we can talk about Coach and Tammy's, and we can talk about Saracen's like arc in the episode. Because I feel like it's tough to separate any of these scenes with her because they're all so pivotal.
However you want to do it. Who's your daddy? You're my daddy in this moment.
Daddy.
You're the daddy of this
just
podcast.
Felt gross coming out.
It's true.
Who's your daddy?
See,
so he comes in. That's basically something that Herc would say, though. Who's your daddy? Like, come right in the room. Yeah, he's completely disrespectful.
Like
no, that was
you were
good.
Imitating him saying it. It was fine.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You say it.
It's just
as
when
yourself.
I say it.
Yes.
Great. Okay.
Not
I'll stop.
great.
No more. Who's your daddy?
Yeah. See, can we get a soundbite of that so I can have a button and I can just press it whenever I want?
No.
This is my request. Yeah, you get me that button.
But he comes in both as a rival and then somebody who just lives life with no apologies.
Mm-hmm.
Something has happened to him, and he has taken full control over his life. He has watched everything implode for him. And when he first comes in, he takes a look at this kid, says a bunch of stuff. He's a tornado. He comes in just whipping around the room. And it's prior to his arrival, it's a very quiet scene between me and a gentleman named Rob Credeur. He was one of my technical advisors, my most trusted outside of Coach James Gumbert. He's an actual occupational therapist. He's not an actor. And Rob was the most incredible asset for me in playing Jason Street. And, he's trying to get Jason to eat. He's like, you're gonna regain use of your hands. You need to stop being in this pity party that you're in, and you need to start doing it because not everybody else here is going to have that afforded to them.
Right.
and telling Jason how it is. And Jason is kind of wallowing at this point. You know, he's been moved to this rehab facility. He's starting to realize like how much he's got ahead of him. And Rob was just
It's only been like 2 weeks.
Yeah, really.
And he was just incredible. But Herc comes in, does the whole thing, and then he leaves, and I'm like, who the hell is that guy? And he's like, that's your roommate. And right away, like Rankin, that character is going to be so much more. And I said earlier in the script.
Yeah, I was going to say, you said in the script it's not nearly as much, and I think they just found this amazing actor. This draft you have, which is probably the first shooting draft, they probably were still casting.
Right.
And then they found Kevin, and they're like, write more scenes for this guy.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
And that you don't always need to have things be so on the nose. I think that's like a thing that Parenthood and Friday Night Lights, like that was something that was really cool, was kind of letting the characters show you who they are and not needing to have a bunch of expositional dialogue explaining who they are. It's sort of like let the people come in and let them be such full characters and such full people that you really understand all the layers of who they are without having to be too on the nose about it. And you definitely get that vibe from him.
Feeling like the energy levels are a little bit low today? Trying to keep them high? Trying to stay focused? Try drinking a Spark today. Spark is Advocare's best-selling energy drink mix that has the perfect amount of caffeine for the days that you need an extra push. It's a great-tasting coffee alternative powered by B vitamins to support your body's natural ability to make and sustain its own energy and neuroactive ingredients to keep you focused and alert. Whether you're just coming out of a workout and know that you need to keep going for the rest of the day, or you're trying to avoid that midday crash, Spark is there for you. Keep a canister out on the counter so you can add a scoop to your water on your way out the door whenever you are taking off. My favorite flavor, personally, is the mystery flavor. You never know what you're going to get, but they're all delicious. You can find your flavor of Spark and discover more products for everyday health and wellness needs at advocare.com/FNL. Get 15% off your first order at advocare.com/FNL. Now, again, that's advocare.com/FNL for 15% off. And the thing is he was kind of loosely based on Mark Zupan, which have you ever seen the documentary Murder Ball?
No, I haven't seen the
It's about
documentary.
quad rugby. And the lead kind of that documentary is Mark Zupan. And it's an incredibly powerful documentary. I recommend everybody out there go watch it. It's great. And Kevin was cast kind of as this Mark Zupan character, this guy who just has gone through something catastrophic but regained power over his own existence. Because you can have that stripped from you very quickly, I think, when you go through something, especially as young as Jason is in this moment. And I feel like Rankin very quickly understood this kid has fight in him and like his intent this entire episode, and he does it so masterfully.
I like that moment where he says that.
Oh,
that's cool.
He
when you
ramps
finally hit the cup at him.
Yeah,
and
he's like, there you go.
The thing is like, so you have a number of scenes where, and this is why I had a hard time separating it. Is like he comes in the first time, he kind of like tests the waters, says a couple of unsavory things, throws some barbs Jason's way, leaves. You find out, okay, that's your roommate. The next time he comes in, Lila's there. He's like, hey, sunshine. Corey comes in, who is actually a member of our Paralympic quad rugby team, who Jeffrey Reiner, Corey's not in the script. Jeffrey Reiner met those guys, knew that there was a storyline that was going to involve quad rugby for Jason Street, met the guy that's Corey, and was like, I need you in the show. Are you an actor? I don't give a shit. You're going to be in the show.
Yeah.
And the moment when he introduces himself to Lyla very quickly helps to normalize, like, guys, we're all human beings.
When
Yeah,
he
it's
says,
great.
And he goes,
you can shake it.
Shake my hand. It doesn't bite. Like it's just like such a cool moment. And Lila's like, her reaction in that moment, Minka's reaction in that moment, that's exactly what Peter Berg and Jeffrey Reiner and A. Liddy, like they were all on the same page as far as like, we want these reactions. We want these real things. We want to play. When we say we improv and stuff, we got off the page. It was more so that you could have these like just
real moments. Happen.
These real moments like that. And he at the end of that scene, he wheels out, and I turn to Lyla and I'm like, I gotta get out of this room. Like, which I kind of chuckled at, actually. Do you ever laugh at yourself, like when you watch something back? Like, I'm mortified to watch myself on screen, but in that moment, I was watching Jason, and I kind of
You
just
mean like, damn, I'm funny. Like, I'm
no,
funny.
I don't
made a
mean like
joke.
I'm funny, but
Hey, that was pretty good.
I think when I said it, I didn't think it was funny, but I think watching it 15 years later, I'm like, oh, that was kind of funny.
We're just ribbing you, you know. We're
I'm
giving
the
you
worst.
the
I
old
thought it
rib.
was,
That's why I
It's
don't
of
like
course it's
talking
funny.
about
It's
this stuff.
great.
And then, like, you know, Street's there, and Herc comes in and just, I'm like, leave me alone. Like, you don't know me. You don't know my girlfriend. You don't know my life.
Keep acting. We love it. Act at me.
No, I'm not going to act. This
You
is
are
so
acting
weird.
at me. I like it.
And then his reaction is just to go, no, I do know you. And this is what's going to happen. So let me tell you about it. Like, your girlfriend's going to leave you. She's going to be gone about 6 weeks. About 8 weeks later, you're not going to have any cards coming in because everybody's going to be bored and they're on the next tragedy. You know, then the insurance bills are going to come, and then the lawsuit's going to happen. About 2 years from now, your parents are going to get a divorce because this tragedy is just too much for everybody. And the whole time, Street is just, you know, telling him to stop, stop, stop. And all episode long, he hasn't been able to. He hasn't had the fight in him to use his hands or anything. And then, yeah, that moment that they wrote where I throw that cup at him, that's not in the script. It's just something that we got pages slipped under the door, like Zach had mentioned in the first episode of our pod. Is that scene came after we did the table read. Like, we used to do table reads for... Oh,
We did?
Yeah, we did. We did.
Oh, what a waste of time.
Table read is you sit there, for listening at home, you sit there and you read the scripts out loud before you shoot them. I mean, I have mixed feelings about table reads. Sometimes I find them really beneficial. Usually I don't, but I think like sometimes I've had shows, like we started doing them on Good Girls, and it was really helpful because there was so much complicated information, and we were shooting like 6 episodes at once, and we truly would be like, wait, so who's gonna kill because the money isn't with the... So it was like sometimes it can be really beneficial, and I think also sometimes it's just helpful hearing it out loud because it makes you think of things like that. And that was like this amazing opportunity to show, like what we were talking about, to show kind of a little bit of who this guy is and who he's going to be to you, and sort of where, because, you know, like you're saying, you sort of think of him in this way of like, oh, he's, you know, kind of just an asshole or whatever. And then it shows that he kind of knows exactly how to inspire you to kind of have this big moment that's a step ahead on your journey that you were having trouble getting to in the state that you were in. And you're kind of like, oh shit, this guy's cool as hell.
Yeah. But that's why I think
cool as hell.
that's why they were useful on this show. Is because they were like, oh, that scene's super impactful. Oh, this scene maybe is not as impactful, and maybe, you know, the balance of the show or the through line of the episode. Like, they started, I love using the word shunt, they started shunting.
I was going to say something about it the first time, but I was like, well, he'll never say that again.
They shunted scenes. I love, what? We don't like this? Okay, whatever.
No, I'm trying to figure out what it means.
It just sounds like it sounds like shart, but it's
something
fine.
it's something that has to do with electricians and about how you get power from one position to another position. But we use it now. We've co-opted it to do things like we took a scene out of this and moved it forward into
It's like punt?
3 episodes. Yeah, like punt.
Why do they both sound so similar and mean
Shunt.
something similar even
Shunt.
if they're different?
Anyway,
Zach's asleep. Hang
the
on.
last scene that Street has in this episode that I thought was so cool is that after that moment, Herc looks at him and goes, I knew you had some fight left in you. And wheels out. And Street gets this little smirk on his face. And then the next time you see them, Tyra walks in.
I love this scene.
Yeah.
I think
It's
it's
so
such a
good. Me
great
too.
scene. And man, Annie is. I rewatching it. I really am like. I think Tyra's like my favorite character.
We were talking about that before, and we were talking about how, like, what an amazing character Tyra is, and how you were saying, like, how that the show kind of had to catch up with her because, like,
Yeah, I think the world had to catch up with Tyra, the character.
Yeah, she was so complex and so direct, and has so much like. You know, she knows who she is, and she knows what she wants, and she's direct with Tim, and she's direct with you, and she's not afraid. She's so courageous. I mean, I'm
and
like,
it's like in this scene is just her doing the right thing.
Yes.
Because she cares about you, even though, and she says, I know we've never been tight. She cares about Riggins, even though they've broken up, and she just knows, like, this is a big deal, what's going on, and I just...
she's one of the only people that speaks to you sort of in a way that's like honest and direct and isn't like stroking her own fear or insecurity or distress in knowing how to communicate with you. She just is talking to you and is paying attention and listening and being present. And I find it to be so striking because she's sort of like gets shit on by the entire town. And when in actuality, we were saying like watching it back, I'm like, wow, she's going to make it out and she's going to be able to like do things. She's going to be able to like make something of her life, you know?
Nowadays, Tyra's lead shows.
Yes.
Like nowadays, that complicated female character who is honest to a fault and takes complete ownership of all of their stuff and dares you to call her on it because guys got away with shit for so long and women, like, especially on television, weren't allowed to get away with shit. Like, that's a lead character now.
Yeah.
But back when Friday Night Lights came out, it wasn't as prevalent. There weren't as many. There were shows where those, you know, like Damages and stuff like that, where you had those complex characters.
But it's also interesting, I think, because on Friday Night Lights, they're writing for her and stuff early, you know? And I've been noticing, too, and I'm kind of surprised. I'm like, Smash has no storyline. Like, you see him at practice, and that's it. We had the one scene with Tyra, which I'll find. I know we get there. I know where it goes. He's an amazing character. But it is interesting, like, oh, at the beginning, it's kind of you. It's a lot of me. It's the Taylors. And then and Tyra really is, like, one of the bigger storylines going on at the beginning of the
she's
series.
using Smash. She's dealing with her emotions for Riggins. She calls him out. Mm-hmm. She apologizes here for Riggins. Right. She's like, I'm sorry that he can't be here for you. And I say, that's Riggins. And she says, yeah, don't I know it? And I don't know that they've broken up at that point. That scene was in the last episode.
Yeah, I think
we didn't get to it. But
yeah, they broke up.
The coolest thing at the end of Streets, and I know I've talked about Street a lot, and I
please keep talking about Street.
I don't feel.
I just messing with you.
But
it's not his fault. He's the only interesting character on the show.
I know.
You know, Herc's been calling me Sparky all episode long, and after Tyra walks out of the room, Herc's like, "Who was that?" And Street, all of a sudden, has that one little smirk of like cockiness that you saw from him at the end of the pilot episode, where he goes, "That's Tyra, Sparky," and like he gives back a little bit to Herc there, and it lets you know. And for me, it let me know, oh, Jason's going to be okay. Which up until this point, it was tough to play Jason.
Hopeless.
Yeah, you got to put a little like twinkle back in your eye.
Yeah, and it was exciting to have a scene partner that was that dynamic and to not be wallowing in the same stuff. And Jason has cried 2 or 3 times now at this point, and this was kind of like the hump. Like, okay, for a little while, Jason's going to be focused and driven, and we're going to get
the
that
beginning of the next phase.
And it was just a sigh of relief for me to kind of get that bit of Jason back. You know, he's still immature, he's still a young kid, he's still hurt, he's still all of those things. But you know that what Herc said is so true. You know, he's got a little fight in him. Meanwhile,
in my notes,
go ahead.
Yeah.
Just wrote Rankin. Because I thought he was so awesome.
I mean, he is. I mean, clearly they saw something in him so quickly because they wrote like three scenes for him that weren't in the script, which is awesome.
Was Sparky in the script, or did someone else come up with that?
I think that was not in the script either. It might be. I've got to go back and check it. I don't want to take any credit away from Carrie, but Herc brought so much of himself to that role. It was pretty incredible.
And I have an interesting question, which is now bringing it back to Matt Saracen and also making that my question converge with my classic segment that everyone looks forward to every week, which is Over the Shoulder, which is me reading Zach's iPad over his shoulder, which I do because it bothers him so much, but also because the content is brilliant. AKA, I would like to ask you about the moment of Saracen's journey where I'm reading a note that says, Coach realizes he told Saracen to Julie. I'd like to hear you explain that and a little bit more of your journey.
Coach pulls Saracen into the office. He's like, you got a girlfriend, you got someone you like? Well, take her out. Take her whatever. Take her in the backseat of a car if you got her. Just like get
loosen up.
Loosen up. And then, you know, you fast forward to the end of the episode when they're at the dance show and he's talking to Julie and you see Coach C. He's like, I think I told that boy to take our daughter in the back of a car.
And I love how Tammy's like, whatever. She's like, I don't even care.
Well, then there's a moment where Kyle makes eye contact with you as he's hugging his daughter because Julie
runs.
Julie then runs over and she's like, Mom and Dad, how was that? And they're like, that was so good. And he's like hugging his daughter and he's giving you the glare, man. And Kyle Chandler has 2 daughters in real life, so I feel like he's given that look. He knows what that look is. He's given that look a couple of times, but
what is your problem in this episode? Like, what's your main? This is a big episode for you.
Oh man, it's
all the voodoo stuff, and I'm just like,
no, it's deeper than that.
Well, it's deeper.
Right?
It's everything.
But that's part of your insecurity, right? I mean, you think it's all going to be so great because you just ran in the river at night, and then all of a sudden,
right,
voodoo shows up.
And you think that that's Matt's biggest problem, but I think the brilliance of this episode is that they show you that Matt's biggest problem isn't in the form of a person or another quarterback that's threatening to take his job away. You start to see that football, what it means to him is an escape from all these real life responsibilities.
And all this
Am
stuff
I right?
with, the pressures of like taking care of my grandmother, and I have the part where I come home from work at the Alamo freeze.
Oh yeah, and that stupid
after
hat.
practice and after school, and my grandma's not there, and it's like that's my responsibility. And this, it's like I'm trying to make sure that she takes her pills. Again, this is a 15-year-old kid. Like this is way too much for him to have on his plate. And I think, then when you fast forward to that scene where they're beating up the car, it's like, where else in his life could he take out these feelings and emotions and, like, for lack of a better term, blow off steam? And I think a lot of us have found ourselves in a spot where we don't realize it's going to be cathartic or what's going on, but all of a sudden I don't even want to say snap, but it's like we kind of get lost in that moment. It's because we haven't dealt with what we need to deal with, and it's just got to come out. And I think that's kind of what's going on with him.
Yeah.
You see... I want to explore a couple of things. I think I'm not Zach, you don't like talking about yourself or your performances and stuff. There are a couple of really important ones here. Early in the episode, Grandma Saracen, you say, I got to go to school to talk to Dad. And that's like also a sign of the times, right? You had to go to the school to get an internet connection great enough so that you could go do a video conference with your father in Iraq, which was like, and you expect this to be this awesome father-son moment. And then
it's just so not. He's just like giving me nothing. Like,
Yeah.
and just showing me.
Well, actually, he gives you like a vote of less than no
Well, that's what I mean.
Right.
He's like showing me that he's like doesn't. He knows I'm only starting because you got hurt. And,
Right.
And it's so heartbreaking because you do a masterful job in that scene of like you're trying to kind of like set him up to like help you, and you're like, I think I did. I think I played pretty well. I hit my receivers really well. And he's like, yeah, that's great. Well, what's going to happen next week? And you're like, well, this guy VooDoo came in and he's like, well, that's got to take the pressure off, right?
Yeah. No, I remember actually rewatching that scene, remembering, and this is so. I think this is a kind of one of the beauties of our writers, and also whatever acting.
Wow, an actor prepares. Devoted to the craft, this one.
I remember that scene, though, where it's like, cool, I'm talking to my dad, and all I had to do was be excited, and it starts with me talking about, like, yeah, I played good, and this and that. And as the scene goes on, I didn't need a writer to write down, and they knew they didn't need to. And then Matt starts to, like, deflate or feel disappointed because my dad's sitting there giving me nothing, and it's very easy to be like, this is, to just be in that moment and kind of experience it, and I appreciate that. I think because it wasn't always like so spelled out on the page, it allowed us to just go do a scene and be like, I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder what emotions we're going to feel.
Were you working against somebody in that scene, or were you by yourself?
No, we were video conferencing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so they made that actually happen.
Yeah.
That's always helpful.
That would
I
have
think.
sucked to do with just a blank screen.
But also the choice that you made to once again kind of, to bring it back to my thing, the responsibility, like the fact that you once again shoulder the responsibility, this child, even of just his emotions. You're not like, hey, I was really hoping, you'd be proud of me, Dad. Like, you're like, yeah, of course I can't do it. Of course it relieves the pressure. Of course it's almost like you absorb it again, and you're like, I can hold it, I can take it, I can carry it, I can hold it for everybody, until you can't with the car and the thing. And by the way, then even after you smack the car and you do the thing, it's like, then the whole you refuse to tell on who else smacked the car with you, and like it's just again shows like this deep strength of character and of loyalty. And I think Coach even recognizes that. He sort of sees that you aren't about to rat out your teammates, and so even though he's fuming that you hit the car, he's a little bit like, damn, this kid's dope.
Yeah. Well, and I remember actually, I have to say, this is like that scene in the car when he picks me up from the hospital. I'll never forget. they're resetting up cameras or something, and Kyle and I are sitting in the car, just waiting to go. And he looks at me and goes, "You're never going to have another job as good as this."
Oh, my God. Lauren used to say that to me about parenthood.
Really?
Yeah.
I was like, "What are you talking about? It's TV. TV's fun. We work on TV. We're playing Maple Leaf." He's like, No. Acting's great. This is the best job you'll ever have. And I was like, and then I'm like, yeah, no, best job I ever had.
It's so crazy that you said that. Lauren used to literally look at me and Miles and be like, mark my words, you will look back and be like, wow, we really had it so good there. And we were like, well, yeah, but everything's, and then like, lo and behold, you're like, love my job, love the things that have come since, but nothing's ever been like that experience.
Still on the fence about which SUV to get? Waiting to hear the reviews? Well, I got some news. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 beat out 32 other SUVs to win Motor Trend's 2023 SUV of the Year. 32. And they picked us. And it's the first time they've ever chosen an all-electric vehicle for this award. So, not only does it deliver on utility, it also has all the benefits of being electric. I'd say that's a win-win.
And there is more. To quote Motor Trend directly, they said the Ioniq 5 is a game-changing rethink of what an SUV can be, and that in this year's incredibly competitive crop of SUV of the Year contenders, the Hyundai was well ahead of the pack. Their words, not mine. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The reviews are in, and they are spectacular. The Hyundai Ioniq 5, Motor Trend's 2023 SUV of the Year. When it comes to award-winning driving, we're thinking of every mile. Hyundai, it's your journey. Available in limited quantities and select states only.
I don't want to let you off the hook yet, though, because two of my favorite moments in this episode involve you. There's the scene, we've heard from your discussion with both Coach and with Tammy that all this responsibility is falling on you. And somebody says, well, can't somebody else do that? And you're like, there is nobody else. But Matt still finds places to smile. And as an actor, that can be so tough to find those moments. But you and Luann Stevens are in the scene where you're like, Grandma, did you take your pills yesterday? Because she clearly hadn't. And you're like, how about you take them in front of me today? And she looks at you and she's like, Matthew, look at my face. Give me those pills. Give me that juice. Don't look away from me. And then she takes those pills. That's not scripted. And when we talk about the improv on the show, I want to make sure that people understand it's additive. It's not, It doesn't detract. It doesn't take away from the writing at all. But she just put that in there. And then you get up and you start to walk out. And she's like, I watched your game film, by the way. Your feet are the problem. Show me your feet. And the smile on your face in that moment is it's so delightful. I was watching that this morning and because I am like, the old curmudgeon in most rooms. Mm-hmm. And
it's true. That's how he presents, but underneath he's a little.
But, so like we were talking about Halloween and I was like, oh, I don't do Halloween. I just went as nothing. And I have kids. But watching that moment, it reminded me of like me with my kids. Not that I'm not fun with my kids, but it is. It's like there's certain people, they just pull you out of that. You're like, I can't not have fun, like with my kids, with my real life grandmother who's passed away. It's like May's pointing at herself. She thinks that she pulls that out.
I know I pull it out.
True or false?
He's begging for it. True or false? Do I pull it? Come on, that's a yes.
But no, it's just those moments where like no matter what's going on, you can get lost in like the joy of being around that person.
Yeah, it's
now, that's not May.
Right, sure. No, that's obviously not.
But then the other moment is when the players from Arnett Meade come to ask you who else was involved. And we'll get to the rivalry stuff in a minute because everything boils to a point. Like you said, you jump in a car with Smash and Riggins. You go to the opposing quarterback's house. You take a baseball bat to his car. The players find you in the parking lot of the Alamo Freeze, and they're like, who else was with you? And you're like, that was me by myself. I had the bat. I drove the car.
I jumped into.
And then you look at them all, and you get this twinkle in your eye, and you say, does anybody want a Swizzler? And it's like, I laugh so hard. I love that moment so much. And you really just brought that line to life. It's in the script, but you can read it and go, what? Why would he? And you just crush it. And you see Matt is a leader. He is a real leader. He's taking this for, and he's kind of apologizing in the way because he's the only reason that they're caught anyway. You're the one that's in your cathartic. You won't leave that car until you get all those emotions and frustration out of you. It's fantastic.
Say, one of my biggest memories about that is I'm not kidding, because I didn't have batting gloves on. If you swing a baseball bat that hard that many times, my hands were so torn up. I'll never forget. And I was just like so.
Was
mad.
there anything about it? Did it feel cathartic at all to actually be smashing?
I thought it was going to feel better,
And you're
but
like,
it was
no,
just
it
acting.
Yeah. That was good.
I mean,
Fooled me.
and to be, I'm like not at the peak of my life, but in a pretty great spot. I'm shooting like the fourth episode of this show. I'm in Texas. I'm a young guy. Having fun, so I didn't have a lot I needed to get out.
Also, like how about the concept of like the storyline that's brewing with you and the coach's daughter? I think that's a really nice thing because I sort of like this flash of, when you after a coach picks you up from the hospital and you guys have this conversation that's so great. I think there's something so cool where he's like, we're going to a dance recital, don't get too excited, and like then you get to see this flash of almost how you would fit into their family, which I love, and also like the wordlessness between Coach and Tammy, who like they have a whole situation this episode about him really not communicating with her openly and him definitely not recognizing how hard her job is and how like and even I love how when he sort of says that she's kind of like yeah, why don't you try actually having to have a conversation with these kids instead of just like yelling at them about some stupid shit? And I feel like, but there's this great thing for you that I sort of picked up on when you're at the dance rehearsal, which is they kind of have this wordless moment where she almost can figure out what happened by you having these bruises on your face. And she like takes his hand, and then it's sort of like you being a part of their family. And also you watch this whole episode of you having to deal with like this really stressful adult shit. And then you go to this like, dance
quote
situation and you like get to see that you're still through all of this, you're not some like little hard ass who's acting out and whatever. You start to fall in love and you're like open to having like a little cutie teen dance love.
I think
Cutie Teen Dance Love.
Yeah, it's my classic. Great album.
That's a great segue into Taylor, the Taylor household, the Taylor family, because you see Julie as a part of that working family as well. She takes the hits for her dad being the football coach, just like Tammy takes the hits as well. But you're kind of the perfect guy for his daughter. He says to you in the car, you are a different person now. You may have just been happy to sit on the bench and let Jason Street do the work, but I can tell you have a fire in your soul and you are capable of great things. And I believe in you, he says to you. And like the person you give that speech to is a person that you wouldn't mind your daughter ending up with. And so 100%. It's like, it's this really cool moment. But earlier in the episode, and we talked about this at the very top of the pod, Coach and Tammy, this episode, and you just mentioned it now. It's really about this couple, and I watch their relationship just in awe of the two actors, but also of like these incredible scenes. Coach springs this barbecue on her. She says, yeah, I'll take care of it for you. And she does. She just makes it happen. And she goes to the store. She buys all the ribs. She gets everything. She comes home, starts cooking. And she says, how many people are going to have this party? And the whole entire episode, Coach is like,
he's so passive-aggressive. I'm like, oh my God, nut up and be honest about the shit you did. Yeah.
50-ish.
God.
60. And the boosters. And these people. And then
people from town are like, we going to see you at the thing? And she's like, you had been coming?
Yeah, you'll see me. It's at my house.
They're like, and they're like, oh my God. And then she's like, has to send poor Julie out to get all the ribs in the ice.
Throw a flag on that real quick. Is she walking to pick up ribs and ice? Because she doesn't drive.
Yeah, she's walking.
Challenge flag.
Julie.
She pushes the
Did
cart
she even
home.
bring a bag? Like, did she even have like a backpack to put the ribs in?
They weren't. Plastic bags were illegal back then.
I'm saying a backpack. You put your ribs in the backpack.
No. She just pushes the shopping cart all the way home.
She's also getting ice. So you're telling me she's carrying ribs and ice?
Yeah, I don't
know.
I
hope
maybe
the
you
store
should have offered to go with her.
I didn't know that's where she was going, or of course I would have.
She says, I'm going to go get ribs or something.
Lois is old enough to drive. Lois
She's waiting
takes
outside.
Her.
It was in the script.
It was Lois.
Lois is going to explain some of the challenge flags that we throw on
that
the pod.
makes sense.
Lois drives Julie.
Got it.
But they're under all this undue stress because of this rivalry week. We've seen destruction. We've seen the weight room of the Dillon Panthers completely destroyed by Arnett Meade. We've seen a kid get arrested. We've seen a kid go into the hospital on this episode. A brick gets thrown through their window, through the Taylor family house's window.
2 quick pauses.
What?
When that happened, because they're arguing, I was like, I can't tell you how many times I've been arguing with my wife, and I wish someone would just throw a brick through the window so that this is over and she forgot what I did and we don't need to talk about it anymore because there's a bigger problem here.
Just text me, bro. I don't even live that far from you.
Second of all, the scene where we're in the field house. This is one of my favorite memories from like the whole show. when we're looking at this stuff, it was just one of those moments, I know we've all had them, where for some reason Taylor and I could not keep a straight face.
Yes.
And when I'm like, where's VooDoo? He's like, I don't know, Saracen, probably jacking off in a full-length mirror. Like, we could not. It took like 16 takes to the point where you go from like, oh, it's funny, to the crew's all annoyed because you just want to move on.
Worst, but you
to
can't.
Then it gets past that to where it's now really funny because these two idiots can't get through 2 lines.
And I could just hear your laugh and Taylor's laugh in the back of my head. Taylor has this like kind of high-pitched like...
He does?
Oh, my God. Yeah.
It's like that?
When he starts laughing, like really, really laughing, sometimes I'm sorry,
This is
Taylor,
why people are listening to the pod. They want to know.
But, well, you want to know, of course.
No, they. I am their voice.
So back to stress and bricks through windows.
Well, yeah, so...
I think would be a de-stress.
It's one of the greatest fights you've ever seen on TV because how many times have you fought with a significant other in public while trying to not let anybody know that you're fighting in public? And they do it under a table. And she is so pissed at him. And he is so prideful and refusing to apologize. And he's like, I need your help hosting. And she's like... I went out and got every bit of meat I cooked for this. I'm cleaning up beer under the table. I'll go up there and give you a smile, but down here I'm pissed.
Yeah. Which again, the responsibilities, the boundaries, the things we have to do in order to perform the obligations that we feel that we have to do. You know, and Tammy's got a great fucking idea of that where she's like, hey buddy, I can't do what you're asking me to do, especially you're not making it any easier. See, now I'm acting.
Yeah,
Scott.
I love it.
I can't make it.
Give it to me.
You're not making it easier because you're not communicating with me, so you can come down here under this table and you can tell me whatever, but under this table, I'm safe. I'll go up there and do it, but you need to shut up and give me my under the table moment before this brick comes flying through, and then I'll be smiling.
And then he shows up later, and you think it's going to be an apology time, right? He sits outside of her office. And he goes into her guidance counselor's office.
What is it that he says?
He says, I'm sorry you're mad.
I'm sorry you're mad
and
at
that
me.
is the number one most bullshit apology. We've all heard it. We've all dealt with it.
Well,
Therapy
she says,
101.
well, I don't think that qualifies as an apology.
Nope.
Connie Britton's brilliance in that moment. I'm not... I don't think that qualifies as an apology. And it's just like her just seeing how to like deliver that. It's just... I don't know. I could watch the two of them all day.
I love that she's like, no.
That's where she says, no, listen, you tell a young man to pick up that ball and take it over there for the next 30 seconds. Basically telling him, you are a distraction maker. You are not a problem solver. You need to actually sit down and talk to these players. Do what I do, which is like guiding them to the next steps in their life, not just trying to win on Friday night. And he really takes that to heart. And then later on,
it's such
they have that makeup scene where he apologizes really at the end of the dance recital.
And I got to say that they're close friends. Like he says that to her.
He says friends.
He says friends. And I mean, that's like, it's such a powerful moment because they respect each other. They see each other.
Yeah.
They like genuinely, and also they make mistakes. You know, not everybody's perfect. Not everybody, you're going to have ups and downs in a relationship. And like, it's not about it being perfect. It's about how you move through it. And I feel like they're like a really prime example of still being human beings that are kind of going on this journey together and are learning to kind of be flexible, you know?
Just before we leave today, a couple of other things that happen.
We have to leave.
No.
It's over.
Okay, so you said earlier that Smash hasn't really had a storyline in this episode. I think Smash's arc so far has
it's percolating. It's just he hasn't really been featured, which is surprising to me.
Yeah, I know, but he's so electric in all the scenes that he's actually in, and he's so good at like trying to find his place. It's like it's all this, you know, this cocksure kind of bravado that he is portraying, and he's like trying to step into a leadership role. And it seems like every time he tries to take that step, something else gets in the way. This episode, it's VooDoo. VooDoo walks into the party, and VooDoo is bad news the whole episode. Smash calls him doo-doo, and I laugh so hard.
Jesus.
I am 5.
Okay.
I
we
don't
know
care.
honkers.
It's right
we know
there.
Scott
Doo-doo.
the honker, air honkers.
Oh,
order.
my God. My hands are in my pockets now. I will not do it again. But he has that kind of confrontation, and VooDoo says, oh, gosh, what does he say? He says, seriously, son, you got to climb some trees to touch something. And it's like I think he's saying like I'm so far above you, like you can't even step to me. And then he pushes him, and Smash is like, "Touch me again, I'll break your fingers." And then they leave that there. VooDoo shows up late to practice later in the episode, and Coach Taylor, again about the boundaries thing, like he wants so badly for Saracen to be better, then VooDoo, he does not want to start this kid. This kid is bad news. He's got a bad feeling about him. He shows up to practice late, and then he just balls out. And Coach Taylor, it's in front of the boosters. It's in front of the entire town, and Coach Taylor's got no choice. Meanwhile, Riggins, is now dealing with this love for Lyla that he can't extinguish.
Oh, God, it's so hot. It's so hot. She's like, that meant nothing. That meant nothing. It's all about Jason for me.
It's so desperate.
I feel
At the end of the
bad.
episode, when he pulls like a creepy stalker move.
Yeah, he's like sitting in the corner of her bedroom.
Okay,
Freaky.
Challenge
and
flag.
then
Challenge
There we
flag.
go.
I'm throwing a challenge flag because we got into this a little bit last episode, and I just don't understand it. Riggins is a bad dude.
He's
he has
misunderstood.
no sense of responsibility. He's misunderstood.
No, but this is some shady stuff.
I mean,
that's his best friend.
But he's in love with her, and it's not like, spoiler alert, it's not like it's like a one and done. These feelings are real.
For him, sure. And for her, too, I know. She says, I hope, her most telling line in this entire episode for me is Lyla. And she's like, I hope I do not go straight to hell for what we did last week. And her boundaries are set by religion.
And her
she's
duty,
got to be
she
a
thinks
good
she's
girl.
supposed to be the
keep
Lord's
up that
lady.
image. Yeah, that whole thing. But the way he dismisses Tyra last episode.
It's fucked up.
He's
horrible.
The team. It's not that he's horrible. He's got a bad hand dealt to
he's
him.
Not the guy you want your daughter marrying.
If you put him up against
that's
Saracen,
why it's hot.
and Tammy Taylor says as much in this episode. We all have our shit. It's how you respond to it, right? Basically.
Yes.
And Saracen is under just as much pressure, absentee father, even more responsibilities than Riggins. But Riggins spirals out of control.
But Riggins is tall.
But people like you
he's
absolutely
like an Abercrombie model.
Yeah.
love him.
He was an Abercrombie model.
You love the idea of Riggins.
No,
so
I'm saying
wait.
this time.
So if Riggins showed up in your room and you were like,
and he was 15 and I was 34,
and you'd be like dirty bathroom, and you'd be like dirty bathroom floor.
If I was Lyla and I'd been what I'd gone through, and I was still in the phase of being like, I want a bad boy, which of course for some reason, a lot of people have that. If I was still in that phase of my life, which thank God I'm not anymore, I would have been like, oh no, this is like, I can't say no. Yes, I would have. Now I would be like, you are a rude young man, and you did not knock on my door.
Did you come in through the window? How did you get in here?
You need to go wash your hair, and then we will talk tomorrow.
I will say, one of my favorite parts of this episode was the very metaphorical, on the nose, for whatever reason, Lila's holding laundry and drops her clothes to the floor as they start kissing. And I was like, oh my God, come on.
They really zoom in on it, too.
They do.
Here's the thing. We have 3 handheld cameras going at all times, and somebody's got to be shooting something. And they were like, I guess Todd was shooting the clothes. But that is going to do it for us today with the episode, Who's Your Daddy?
Oh, God.
Anybody want to take us out?
I want to take myself out.
Yeah, you guys want to take me out. Okay. For Mae Whitman and Zach Gilford, my name is Scott Porter. You have been listening to It's Not Only Football, Friday Night Lights and Beyond. We'll talk to you guys next week on Thursday. See ya.
Bye.